Good morning, students. So today we will discuss the topic legality of object and agreement declared void. So in this chapter there are three questions which are important one. One question is a short question and two questions are long. So firstly we will discuss about the first short question of this chapter, which is when the purpose or the object of the agreement is unlawful. So first of all, I would like to discuss about that the purpose of the contract must be lawful. For making a valid contract, it is must that the purpose of your contract must be lawful. But there are certain cases when the object of the agreement is unlawful, and that's why that agreement is void agreement. So the cases where consideration and the object are unlawful, if the object or consideration is forbidden by law, for example, if you are making a agreement for smuggling, if it defeats a provision of any other law, if the object or consideration is fraudulent, for example, if you getting a signature of a person on marriage certificate fraudulently, that is the purpose of your agreement is unlawful. Another one is if it involves injury to the person or property of any other person, or if the court declares the object or any constitution as immoral. One more thing, when the purpose or the object of your contract is unlawful, is if you are making an agreement which is against a public policy. So these are the cases where the purpose or the object of your agreement is unlawful, and that's why that agreement cannot become a contract. So to make a valid contract, your object or the purpose must be lawful. Next part is what is public policy and what agreements are opposed to public policy. So firstly, I would like to discuss about public policy. Public policy means the rules for the welfare of the public made by the government. So in every country, every government, in order to protect the public, make certain rules. Those rules are known as public policy. All these rules are made for solving the problems of the public, approved by the government and implemented as a rules or policy. So here is the list of the agreements that are against public policy, and because they are against public policy, that's why they are void agreement. First one, if you are making an agreement with enemy, trading with enemy, that is against public policy. Secondly, if you are making an agreement for stifling the prosecutions against any criminal, because it is a rule of every country that criminal must be punished. But if you are making an agreement to stifle the prosecution against any criminal, that is against public policy. Next one is agreement of maintenance and champerty, in which a third person who is not involved in any kind of agreement or contract, but if one person is engaging the third party to take a legal action against any other one with whom he has no connection, and for taking legal action he is getting certain benefit or certain money, that is the agreement of maintenance and champerty, which is against public policy. Next one is the rules relating to public offices. So if you are making any agreement to deal with public offices, to get any reward, to get any government job, in that case that agreement is against public policy. Another one is agreement tending to create interest opposed to duty. If you are making an agreement with some person in which that agreement is restraining that person to perform his duty, that is also against public policy. Marriage brokerage agreement, then agreement tending to create monopolies is also against public policy. If you are making an agreement, okay, to create the monopoly, that is also against public policy. Another one is agreement to influence election to public offices. If in any country there are some elections are to be conducted for any public offices, and if the candidates making an agreement with anyone to influence the election, for example, he is giving money so that he can win in that elections, that is also an agreement which is against public policy. If you are making any agreement to interfere in the personal liberty of any person, that is also against public policy. And last one is agreement interfering with marital duties. If you are making an agreement in which you are interfering in the marital duties of some person, that is also against public policy. So this is the list. All these agreements are against public policy. So if you are making any kind of agreement among the list, that agreement is void, and the reason why that agreement is void, because it is against the public policy. The next part is the main major long question of this chapter, which is very important. What is void agreement and what agreements are declared as void by Indian Contract Act 1872? We have already discussed about void agreement in first chapter, but here again I will discuss it. So void agreement means that agreement which is void from the beginning, which is unenforceable, which has no legal value. Why it has no legal value? Because maybe its purpose is unlawful, maybe it is against public policy. The reason may be anyone, but the agreement basically is not fulfilling all the conditions of section 10. So the agreement which is void from the beginning, very beginning, when the parties are making it, that agreement is void agreement. This kind of agreement can never be valid. It has no legal value. So here is a list of agreements which are specially declared by law as void agreement. First one is if you are making an agreement with incompetent parties according to section 11, if you are making an agreement with the minor, with person of unsound mind, or with person disqualified by law, that agreement is void agreement. Second, if parties are making an agreement which is based on mutual stake of fact, that is also a void agreement. The agreement in which object or the consideration is unlawful, whether the whole object or the whole consideration is unlawful or in part also. Next one is agreement without consideration. For making a valid contract, consideration must be there. If you are making an agreement in which there is no consideration, that agreement is totally a void agreement. Another one is agreement in restraint of marriage. If you are making an agreement to restrain the marriage of any person, that is also a void agreement. Again, another one is if you are making an agreement to restrain any person for doing any kind of trade, any kind of work, any kind of business, that is also a void agreement. If you are making an agreement in restraint of legal proceeding of any person, that is also void. Another one is if you are making an agreement the purpose of which is uncertain. We have already studied that the purpose or the contract must be certain. Means the parties must be aware what they have to do in the contract. If the purpose is not certain, if the meaning is not certain, if the parties are not aware what they are supposed to do in that contract, that means the meaning is uncertain. And if you are making an agreement whose meaning is uncertain, that agreement is totally void. 10th number is agreement by way of wager. Wager means bet. If you are making an agreement in which betting is involved regarding the happening or non happening of uncertain future event, that agreement is a wagering agreement, and wagering agreements are totally void. Wagering agreements means the agreement in which one person is promising to pay money or money's worth on the happening or non-happening of some future uncertain event. The event may be happened or not. So in that case, party's only intention is to get the benefit, is to receive the gain on the happening of that event or non-happening of that event. That's why that agreement is void agreement. And last, if the parties are making an agreement to do an impossible act which can never be possible to perform, those agreements are totally void. So this is the list of all those agreements which the law specially declared as void agreement. Hope you will understand each and every point. Thank you.